Hey, boys and girls, I thought it would be a good idea if we went ahead and started a novel study. I put a Foursquare up on the Google Classroom for you so you can have that up while you're watching the video or listening to it. Go back to it as you need to. Our book that we're going to start is called The Lemonade War by Jacqueline Davies. This will go right along with our economics unit that we're doing in social studies. So we're going to go ahead and get started with it. First chapter is called Slump. Slump, a noun, a drop in activity of a business or the economy. Evan lay on his back in the dark, throwing the baseball up in a straight line and catching it in his bare hands. Thwop, thwop. The ball made a satisfying sound as it slapped his palm. His legs flopped in a V. His arms stretched up to the ceiling, and he thought that if he missed, he'd probably break his nose, made the game just interesting enough to keep going. On the floor above, he heard footsteps, his mother's, and then a long, loud, scraping, groaning sound. He stopped throwing the ball to listen. His mother was dragging something heavy across the kitchen floor, probably the broken air conditioner. A week ago, right at the beginning of the heat wave, the air conditioner in his mother's attic office had broken. The man from Sears had installed a brand new one, but left the old one sitting right in the middle of the kitchen floor. The Trescas had been walking around it all week. Trescas is the name of the family, Evan's family. It's their last name. Scrape. Evan stood up. His mother was strong, but this was a two-person job. Hopefully, she wouldn't ask him why he was hiding in the dark basement, and hopefully, Jessie wouldn't be in the kitchen at all. He'd been avoiding her for 2 days now, and it was getting harder by the minute. The house just wasn't that big. Evan had his hand on the railing when the scraping noise stopped. He heard footsteps fading to silence. She'd given up. Probably the heat, he thought. It was that kind of weather, giving up kind of weather. He went back to lying on the floor. Thwop, thwop. Then he heard the basement door open. Pssh. Evan caught the ball and froze. Evan! Jessie's voice sounded echoey in the darkness. Evan? You down there? Evan held his breath. He lay completely still. The only thing that moved was the pins and needles prickling from his fingers. He heard the door start to close. Long breath out. But then it stopped and opened again. Footsteps on the carpeted stairs. A black outline of Jessie standing on the bottom step with daylight squirting all around her. Evan didn't move a muscle. Evan, is that you? Jessie took one short step into the basement. Is it? Is that? She inched her way towards him, then kicked him with her bare foot. Hey, watch it, would ya? Evan said, swatting her leg. He suddenly felt silly lying there in the dark. I thought you were a sleeping bag, she said. I couldn't see. What are you doing down here? And how come the lights are off? It's too hot when the lights are on, he said. He talked in a flat voice, trying to sound like the most boring person on the whole planet. If he kept it up, Jessie might just leave him alone. Mom's back in her office, Jessie said, lying down on the couch. Working, she groaned as she said the word. Evan didn't say anything. He went back to throwing the ball. Straight up, straight down. Maybe silence would get Jessie to leave. He was starting to feel words piling up inside him, crowding his lungs, forcing out the air. It was like having a chest full of bats beating their wings, fighting to get out. She tried to move the air conditioner, but it's too heavy, said Jessie. Evan tightened his lips. Go away, he thought. Go away before I say something mean. It's going to be hot all week, Jessie continued, in the 90s, all the way up until Labor Day. Thwop, thwop. So what do you want to do? Jessie asked. Scream, thought Evan. Jessie never got it when you were giving her the big freeze. She just went right on acting as if everything was great. It made it really hard to tell her to bug off without telling her to bug off. Whenever Evan did that, he felt bad. So, what do you want to do? Jessie asked again, nudging him with her foot. It was a direct question. Evan had to answer it or explain why he wouldn't. And he couldn't get into that. It was too complicated. Too hurtful. Huh? So what do you want to do? She asked for the third time. Doing it, said Evan. Nah, come on, for real. For real, he said. We could ride our bikes to the 7-Eleven, she said. No money, he said. You just got $10 from Grandma for your birthday. Spend it, said Evan. On what? Stuff, Evan said. Well, Jessie's voice dribbled down to nothing. Evan stopped throwing the ball and looked at her. What? Jessie put her legs tight to her chest. Nothing, she said. Right, said Evan. He knew that Jessie had money. Jessie always had money squirreled away in her lockbox. But that didn't mean she was going to share it. Evan went back to throwing the baseball. He felt a tiny flame of anger shoot up and lick his face. Thwop, thwop. We could build a fort in the woods, said Jessie. Too hot. We could play Stratego. Too boring. We could build a track and race marbles. No way. A thin spider web of sweat draped itself over his forehead, spreading into his hair. With every throw, he told himself, it's not her fault. But he could feel his anger growing. He started popping his elbow to put a little more juice on the ball. It was flying a good 4 feet into the air every time. Straight up, straight down. Pop, thwop, pop, thwop. The bats in his chest were going nuts. What's the matter with you? Asked Jessie. You've been so weird the past couple days. Oh, man, here they come. I just don't want to play a game like Stratego, he said. You like Stratego. I only picked that because it's your favorite game, and I was being nice in case you hadn't noticed. Look, there's only 6 days left of summer, and I'm not going to waste them playing a game like Stratego. Evan felt his heartbeat speed up. Part of him wanted to stuff a sock in his mouth, and part of him wanted to deck his sister. It's not a very fun game, and it's for babies, and I don't want to play a baby game. Pop, thwop, pop, thwop. Why are you being so mean? Evan knew he was being mean, and he hated being mean, especially to her. But he couldn't help it. He was so angry and so humiliated and so full of bats. There was nothing else he could be except alone. And she'd even taken that away from him. You're the genius, he said. You figure it out. Good. That would keep her quiet for once. Evan watched the ball fly up in the air. Is this because of the letter? Jessie asked. Crack! Evan had taken his eyes off the ball for 1 second. For just 1 second, and the ball came crashing down onto his nose. Crud! Oh, crud! He curled over into his side, grabbing his nose with both hands. There was blinding, blooming pain right behind his eyes that was quickly spread to the outer edges of his skull. Do you want some ice? He heard Jessie ask in a calm voice. What do you think? He shouted. Yeah, she stood up. No, I don't want any ice. The pain was starting to go away, like a humongous wave that crashes with lots of noise and spray, but then slowly fizzles away into nothing. Evan rolled into a sitting position and took his hands away from his nose. With his thumb and index finger, he started to pinch the bridge. Was it still in a straight line? Jessie peered at his face in the dim light. You're not bleeding, she said. Yeah? Well, it hurts, he said. A lot. It's not broken, she said. You don't know that. You don't know everything you know. You think you do, but you don't. It's not even swollen. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Evan held his nose with one hand and hit his sister's knee with another. Then he picked up the baseball and struggled to his feet. Leave me alone. I came down here to get away from you, and you just had to follow. You ruined everything. You ruined my summer, and now you're going to ruin school. I don't like you. When he got to the bottom of the steps, he threw the baseball down in disgust. Thud. That's the end of the first chapter. So go to your Google Classroom page or on your It's Learning page where I have attached your Foursquare. Make sure, I've already typed the name of the story in there for you. So I want you to tell me what problem you think Evan is having. He definitely has more than one problem going on in the story so far. I want you to tell me what the word humiliate means, and I'll read that sentence back to you. But he couldn't help it. He was so angry and so humiliated and so full of bats, there was nothing else he could be. I also want you to describe Evan. What kind of feelings do you think Evan is having right now? Character traits that you can see that Evan may have. And then finally, I want you to tell me what lesson you think you have learned from this chapter. There is a lesson, possibly two. And then you can go ahead and turn that in. If you need to listen to the chapter again, feel free to listen to it as many times as you need. Hope you enjoyed it. It's going to be a great book. Talk to you soon.